from your experience, like in doing them yourself compared to working with a team, like what are the maybe some learning experiences that you've seen along the way versus when you were at REIG?
So I was a bit scarred there just because our team was so big.
Right.
And, for me, I think that that's a really good business model for some. For me, I was really slow in bringing on too many people, slower than I should have been in the beginning for sure. But again, I think I was just a little burned out. But I think you could do a lot with a little in this business. And so that's been kind of my model as far as, getting the right people and the right processes first, and then not worrying about having so many people and everybody's going to look at it differently, right? You've had other people who do have larger teams, and I think it's great, and they do more business than me and all that. But for me, it's just the lifestyle I wanted to live and the way I wanted to structure my business. I wanted to have a core group of team members and then add on as I needed as the volume grew.
Right.
So I just grow differently than other people. But yeah, for me, that was a big thing I learned from that company was not to get too big too fast and have to the need of we have to find another deal. We have to find another deal. We have to pay off, whatever it was that we have to bring this revenue in for. I want to responsibly structure my finances and my business in a way that I'm not, stressed to buy more houses.
Right.
The last latter part of last year, we slowed down quite a bit.
Right.
And we were able to coast right through because, I don't have a huge overhead with my team. We were able to buy more rental properties. We were able to slow down. We were able to take time to work on our processes. And we had that luxury because, we're frugal with the way we spend our finances in the business. And we don't have more people than we need.
Right. And doing more isn't always better, right? I think with one thing about with you and your team is you guys run leaner, right? Like having a smaller team, your profitability is probably much better compared to someone who is much larger, who has, 20 or 30 employees versus you that has 3, 4?
So we have 4 employees and then two assistants overseas,
Right.
VAs. So
Right.
yeah, there's 7 of us.
Right. But that's
myself.
still profitability wise per deal compared to other people. The margins are probably much better. So even for people who are listening, someone that does 500 deals in the last, few years or does 100 plus a year compared to someone like you that maybe does, 25 to 50, right? A year?
We do about 50 a year.
50 a year?
Yeah.
Yeah, 50 a year. I mean, you're probably running much leaner and the profitability is probably still very similar.
Yeah, so I probably left out a year. We probably have done at least 200 flips, to
Okay.
be honest.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to do the math. It's about 50 a year.
Right. And then by yourself, but that's not even including what you manage at REIG and
No,
the other
yeah.
companies, right?
No, we were
when
doing
you
a
were
lot there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What made you make that switch? Just the burnout made you make that switch to go solo?
No, I mean, it was kind of like riding a bike with training wheels and your
Right.
training wheels aren't even touching the ground anymore. It was just time.
Yeah.
I knew I could have left earlier.
Right.
But there were certain things I was getting in order before I left that company. I had a good relationship with them. I wanted to make sure to give them plenty of time. So I give them a few months notice that I was leaving. I helped them hire some replacements. I've always been kind of more of a steady type of, okay, well now this is next and I'm going to go for it. Versus stressing about trying to do it all at once.
Right.
But yeah, it was just time.
Did you go and use your own money with your initial first handful of deals that you were doing solo, or did you raise capital right off the bat?
The very first deal I did was with my own money. The very first deal, and I talk about it a lot. It was this house in National City here in San Diego, and the seller just wanted $30,000 because she had gone online and Googled, where can I find the cheapest duplex? She basically searched Zillow duplex 2 units and cheapest, lowest price, sorted by lowest price, and then clicked that and bought that. She bought a duplex in the middle of South Dakota for $30,000.
What?
And so that's all she needed. And so I structured a deal. She had 3 liens on her property. She had a first, a second, and a hero loan. So a first mortgage and then a second mortgage. And then what's a hero loan? It's a it's like it's this weird program where they tack it onto your property taxes.
Right.
It's a horrible program. I would suggest that nobody gets
It's for
that.
like remodeling your house, like for
Energy
windows or
efficiency,
roof or,
and
yeah.
it's a scam in my opinion. But she was paying a lot for that. So basically, what I did was I gave her the 30 grand and took over all those loans, and that's how I was able to afford to close on my first flip. And then I had enough cash to do the remodel. And then once I flipped that, I started to parlay that money a little bit. And
So
then
that was like a creative financing deal.
yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was what you call subject to,
Right.
but subject to 3 loans,
Right.
and then came in with the cash difference. My second deal was a subject to also.
Interesting.
It was up in Irvine. The sellers were way behind on their mortgage, and I brought them current, took over their loan, and then flipped it as well.
I feel like those are becoming more and more popular. Subject to you're seeing a lot more popularized with popularized, and
I don't know the answer to that question.
yeah. Well, I feel like I see it on social media now. It's being very popularized with how to structure it because rates are much higher than they are, and with people who like even like from the last 2 years with rates being where they
Right.
were. If someone was to have bought in 2 years ago or 3 years ago, their rate's probably 3 or 4%. Where now, like for us to go get a loan on a rental property or even to do like a construction loan for hard money, we're paying a lot more. So to
Yeah.
do subject to makes a lot of sense for someone like us.
For sure. So why don't we explain what subject to is
'Kay.
for your listeners?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
not everybody's going to know what it is.
For sure.
So subject to is where, and you know this, but we'll
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of break it out for everybody. Subject to is where you purchase a home with an existing mortgage on it. And instead of you paying that mortgage off for the seller at closing, they're keeping that open and you're buying it subject to that mortgage. So basically, you're just buying that house and taking over their payments to the bank.
Right.
And
And
like
title
you
still
said,
transfers
title
to
still transfers.
your name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's obviously a lot of trust that needs to happen between the seller and you because they need to trust that you're going to make their payments and not foreclose on the house and mess up their credit because that loan stays in their name.
Sure.
This is different from assuming a loan, right?
Right.
This is purely it stays in their name. You're not even notifying the bank.
Right.
You're just transferring title and starting to send the check from your account instead.
Right. And then the difference between subject to and owner financing. On owner financing, and then correct me, jump in if I'm incorrect at all. Owner financing is typically when the house is paid off and the seller is doing a loan with you and you guys are structuring how much the interest and down payment and all that stuff would be. So it's between subject to and owner financing, there are the completely different. We're
Right.
talking about creative financing.
Right. Yeah. So the seller financing is the seller becomes the lender.
Right.
Usually they don't own anything on the house and you're paying them an interest rate in a term just like you would a bank. They
Right.
become the bank and you decide on how long that's going to stay open. With subject to, you still are deciding how long are they going to let you keep that open, right? Like
Right.
how long you're going to negotiate with the seller how long they're going to let you keep that loan open.
Right. Until there's a balloon payment or
Balloon payment,
until you have
or
to refi out of
maybe
them.
I've done subject twos where they're like, okay, you can do it for a year while you flip it,
Mm-hmm.
and so we take it on subject to, and we flip it, and then we pay it off when we go to sell the property.
Right.
So the way we write up the contract is, it's to be paid off upon resale.
Yeah, and I'm seeing a lot of those. The owner financing deals can be structured. I mean, you could still do 30 years subject to. I'm seeing a lot of them are 30 years, right? And they're taking over those existing payments. So it's interesting how that's the creative financing side.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of ways to structure a deal different.